time to give your opinion on the Bills and the NFL. Let's talk football live. Now, here's the 13 Wham Sports Team.
Welcome into Let's Talk Football Live, presented by Connors and Ferris, Mike Catalana and Dan Fetes. I am Jenna Cottrell. We are getting you ready as the Chiefs taking on the Bucks down in Tampa for Super Bowl 55. Mike has the icon in the back, the LIV. I saw a joke that said this year was live, next year will be love, and then laugh after that. So I know a lot of people excited. Yes, we will be talking Tom Brady. We will be talking Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs. But Mike, let's start with this. I mean, Brady will be in his 10th Super Bowl appearance this upcoming Sunday. It's unbelievable considering where the Bucs were at earlier in this year to see where they're at now. Is it not?
I think the less believable part is not that they got themselves together and made it, because they have a lot of talent on this team. I mean, you know, he's never played with the amount of weapons. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, when Gronk was going and Edelman, that was pretty good. But I mean, you know, he's got Godwin, you know, he's got your buddy Mike Evans. Like, he's got real talent on that team, and they should have been better than they were. Mm-hmm. So to see them get going and make it doesn't surprise me as much. It's just the idea that, you know, he didn't look great at the end in Foxborough. And I know he didn't have a lot of help. And it was falling apart on them. But he just didn't look great. Yeah. And look at him now. Somebody showed a picture of him and Mahomes the other day, and they say he looks 10 years younger than Mahomes.
Seriously.
It's comical.
And the weapons, Mike, I think you hit it right in the head. It's just the weapons that he had. But they were still struggling early on in the year. I think they had a Thursday night game where they were really bad, and Brady had like 3 interceptions. They were down. Who'd they lose to 31-0 or they were losing 31-0 at halftime. And then it seems like Mike will laugh at this, but I always like to mention it, that Bruce Arians says that he just started letting Brady coach. And then all of a sudden they started playing. And he still has the arm strength. He still has the moxie to go down throwing the ball 40 times. You know, he had 3 interceptions, tried to give the Packers back in the game in the NFC Championship with 3 turnovers. But that's kind of who he is at this point. It's impressive to see a guy that he pretty much texted, you know, one team and was like, "You guys want to go to the Super Bowl? Come on, I'll take you." Like that was it. Like, yes, he's got Leonard Fournette. Yes, he's got weapons around him. They've got a defense that's good. But they shouldn't have gone to the Super Bowl. Like, this is unbelievable.
It kind of is. I mean, Mike, you're right. Like, there is a ton of talent on that team, and it's hard to argue with that. But like this year, it really took them a while to put it together. And I think we saw that earlier on, like the struggles with the consistency. Brady was making plays, but like you said, Dan, like the turnover aspect of it, being a little bit more careless.
He turned it over 3 times in the second half of the championship game on the road in Green Bay, and they still won.
Yeah.
They still won the game. Look, the NFC was not good. Oh, to the Saints. Yeah.
Yep.
And that was a bad game for them. The NFC was not strong. It's just funny that they're the first team to host a Super Bowl, and they played 3 games on the road to get there to be the host. So it wasn't like they had the year of all years. You know, they didn't win their division. Now, you know, they got Washington first, but, you know, they end up winning the NFC Championship game in Green Bay against a Packers team that had been playing well. So you got to give them credit. You got to making it to the Super Bowl 10 times is just disgusting.
In a league that is built on parity, that is supposed to be a league that is supposed to rotate talent with draft picks and salary cap and all of those things. The one common theme for 50% of the Super Bowl since Tom Brady's been a starting quarterback is Brady. Like, it's 20 years, 10 Super Bowls. Unbelievable.
Well, let's talk about the Chiefs, too, because we have some comments talking about – I love this one from Brian. Any true Bills fan shouldn't be cheering for Brady and the Bucs. And I know that sentiment is pretty strong with a lot of Bills Mafia. But, I mean, we do have to say we know this Chiefs team is so talented. We saw that 2 weeks ago when they played the Bills and how steadily – we talked about going into it, like, can they flip a switch? Seems like they flipped the switch. Like the Chiefs will blow out the Bucs, and you'll feel much better about the Bills' loss. JM saying.
Well, that's interesting because I do wonder sometimes about that. They are becoming a rival of the Bills, but you're not really rivals until you beat them, right? So they're rivals in a sense because they're the best team in the conference. It's not like it's the Patriots or at some point maybe it would be the Dolphins or who knows, at some point the Jets, because they're the teams you play twice a year every year. But you can become rivals with another team in the conference. I mean, I think New England had it with Indy for a while. They've always had a thing with Baltimore. Like that has gone on a lot. But I think if the Chiefs were playing another team, if they were playing Green Bay, I think Bills fans would be rooting for Green Bay. I think it's just hard for a lot of them to just say, I want Tom to win again.
But it's interesting. I find it how chippy the end of that Chiefs game got.
Yeah.
I feel like some Bills fans are so turned off by the arrogance of KC. I think that the Chris Jones punch of John Feliciano, the cheap shot at the end, and then to only have Bills players fined. I think that doesn't sit well with Bills fans.
Yeah.
Bills fans are used to either, beating a team and then donating $500,000 to their charity. I don't think anybody's going to be donating to the Bills Mafia will not be donating to the Bills charity or to Patrick Mahomes charity anytime soon.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think that is a piece of it as well. It is pretty funny. But we know Brady and Mahomes were talking this week just about being in this game. And Brady mentioned just the fact that he's back here again. And he said it in the most demure, model-esque way possible, of course.
I was just hoping to play high school football because I wanted to be like Joe Montana and Steve Young. And then when I got a chance in college, I just wanted to play at Michigan. And then when I got drafted to the Patriots, I just wanted to play. I just wanted to start. Fast forward 21 years and sitting in Tampa trying to go out and play a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl in our own home stadium, which would be pretty sweet.
He's the type of greatness that you strive to be like and to be towards as you grow up. And so for me, I grew up watching him play, and he's still here playing, and he's still at the top of the game. So for me, I just continue to watch him and watch the things that he does on and off the field in order to figure out the best way to make me the best player possible.
I was just hoping to play.
Sorry. I just got mesmerized by Tom's.
He looks like he's
hair.
got an Instagram filter on. Like he looked like he had something on his face.
Shouldn't that be called the Brady filter, right?
Yeah, probably. Also, I forget Patrick Mahomes' voice, and then when you hear it again, you're like, oh, he does sound like Kermit the Frog.
That's why they don't let him talk as much in the State Farm commercials.
Seriously. Jenna, my wife made that comment after the AFC Championship game. Was like, that quarterback has his voice sounds funny, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of his thing. That's kind of his thing. Like,
you forget it, and then you hear it again. It's hard to take him seriously, especially when he has looks like he's landing a plane with those headphones down here.
We should have Renee on one time just for her take on things because it's spectacular.
It's really good.
Yeah, we can have that.
It's funny when you talk about. Yeah. It's funny because they did the comparison. They talk about when Mahomes talks about I grew up watching Brady. Yeah, he really did. Right. It's very unusual for a guy to be playing in a Super Bowl. I mean, they're the first ever quarterbacks to be facing off in a Super Bowl that have both won a Super Bowl and have both been named Super Bowl MVPs. First time that's ever happened. And they showed the comparison of what video games looked like when Tom Brady came into the league, and they're block guys, and it's the worst graphics you can imagine. And now it's Madden is lifelike of just the span of 2 decades of what Brady has done.
I was going to tweet out, did you know that when Tom Brady was young, Patrick Mahomes was younger? But I figured that might be a little too snarky.
You're crazy. You're crazy with the snark. By the way, here's
what a wild hot take.
Here's some snark for you.
It was a joke. Yeah. Tom Brady.
He's right there. He is right there. Now,
he also has the
Fran Tarkenton is, you guys wouldn't know. I mean, Fran Tarkenton lost 3 with the Vikings, never won one. Elway ended up winning 2. we know about Jim, but Brady's right there. Dan, he could be the all-time loser in Super Bowls.
Yeah, that'll really show him
for the lead. Yes, that's right.
Really
he does have the 6. He does have those 6 wins, but we're only talking about losses here.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting comments from JM here. Says the Chiefs are a dynasty in the making. And then his next comment says they will win 5 straight Super Bowls.
That's a lot.
This isn't a hot take, JM. They won't win 5 straight Super Bowls. We all said this. We talked about this at the end of the last one I think we did, where the Golden State Warriors were supposed to run the NBA for however many years. And one guy blows his Achilles, another guy breaks a bone, and the season is derailed. Not that anybody's ever not talking about wishing ill will. I'm just saying injuries happen. If Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago had his kneecap dislocated from his body and they had to put it back on. It's not that easy to just run it back. And it's not easy. And it's the same way for the Bills fans that are watching this to automatically say they'll be back, that the Bills will be back to the AFC Championship game. Sean McDermott talked about it. You have to start over. You don't.
Yeah.
Mike, you made the comparison about a golf tournament.
Yeah.
You win one golf tournament. You don't start in first place in the next one. You got to go all the way over it. You got to make the weekend. You got to make the playoffs.
And the other comparison to Golden State is, and you can make some comparisons to Steph Curry and Mahomes. Yeah. Because they are so much fun to watch. They do things that we haven't really seen. But after a few years and them winning, everybody sort of roots for them, right? They're guys that are easy to root for. Until Steph's taking the threes and looking back at the crowd. And, I mean, he's still likable. But you were like, you could lose, right? You could lose.
That's it.
And then it started to fall apart. And he's more likable now when he's on a lousy team.
Yeah.
Because they were just winning and it almost looked easy for them to win. And the Chiefs have sort of done that. Now, in fairness, they won the Super Bowl last year and man, they had to work for it in every playoff game.
Sorry, I couldn't resist Delatorre.
Wow.
Got to get the run game going.
Somebody trolling you, man.
The Bills, hot take. What's today's date? February 4th. The Bills will not draft a running back in the first round. I don't care what the mock drafts say. The Bills are not taking a running back in the first round.
I would say, again, where they're picking, they could be taking a weapon. And a guy like ATN is a weapon.
Okay.
Tight end.
Could be.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could be right? They could be doing that. But at the same time, yes, I do think it's a position on the field for them that they need to get more out of at running back. Mm-hmm. They need a more dynamic player at running back. I think one of the two guys is going to go.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Singletary.
I never think they have to.
Well, you can't bring in another back without getting rid of the other one because you can't have 3 regular running backs. Somebody's got to play special teams.
Yeah.
Somebody has to. I mean, usually out of the back. So, you already got that. I mean, that's where like TJ Yeldon or
Tywan Jones.
Yeah, Tywan Jones play special teams. But you're not going to have 3 regular running backs.
I agree with Scott Blakely saying that you got to fix the lines. I think the Bills got dominated run blocking. Whatever it was, it didn't gel.
Dan, do you really think either one of those guys is a dynamic player?
No.
They're good.
But I don't think in the Bills offense they need a dynamic running back. I don't think they need.
I think that you do.
I think you do.
I think that showed this year, especially in the playoffs.
I think you could find a guy like Mike always says, like a Naeem Hines to fill that. Darren Sproles, a third down back.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right, but you don't use a first round pick on.
No, maybe not. I mean, if you go for, everybody laughs about CJ Spiller because when he came to the Bills, a guy like CJ, he was a guy like CJ Spiller who had one phenomenal year with the Bills would really fit with this team because they would find ways to use him, get him in space. He was a great runner. He just never really took off the way he could have, but the Bills had a lot of problems back then. So,
but they need that. They need that scat back. They need that
scat back.
That like lightning in a bottle kind of guy.
Emphasize that.
Listen to Dan.
That's what I think that's what
he's
they thought
advocating
Devin
for
would
running
be.
backs. I just want to clip this part. Dan is like, get me a running back.
Fake news. Fake news.
What if we changed the name of the position? What if we just called it non-wide receiver quarterback skill position guy?
I'm all for it.
Even that. I'm
Just to have you have to say that on new sportscasts every night.
I mean, that would be interesting, though, to see what the Bills will do, because they've drafted in the third round back-to-back years running backs, and I feel like it hasn't. Also, tight end one, Mr. Wick. That's a good point. Dawson Knox has not been, I think. I mean, this is not a hot take. He has not been as consistent as they would like.
And you're right, Jenna. And there'll be a lack of patience a little bit with that. It's not that they think they need to get rid of Dawson Knox. I mean, he has talent. He does some really good things for them. But, like, you need him right now. Yeah. Like, you need him to step up now. And they weren't asking him to be, Kelsey, but he needed to be a better version of Dawson Knox. And it was too many flashes, and then he had the COVID thing, and he had injuries, and he had the drops, and he did make some really good plays. He's got the touchdown in the, in the game itself. I mean, it wasn't a great play, but but they didn't get a lot out of that position. So yes, to Dan's point, they need to upgrade that. By the way, the other point that's come out today was about the $10 million more maybe on the cap. And I agree with that. And it can help you with a guy like Matt Milano, or it could help you with Darrell Williams. But that's before these guys get to, March 17th, I think is the date when they're free. Because once they're free, or once their agent is talking to other teams early, they'll know what's out there. And every other team might have $10 million more than they thought too. So if Matt Milano knows by osmosis, I guess, that a team is out there, I'll say the Jets, just pick New England, I don't care, whoever it is, and wants to pay him a lot, it's going to get a little harder to sign a guy no matter what you have for extra cap money, because you're not going to give it all to Matt Milano.
No, I agree.
Right. And like I said, and a lot of people coming in the comments saying that, you kind of need to retool the offensive line to some respects. And you do have John Feliciano up. You do have to figure out whether it's Ike Butker or, whoever that other guard is, as well as figuring out a right tackle. You're going to have Cody Ford back. Brandon Beane went over complimenting Cody Ford in his end of the year presser. Pretty much went out of his way to say how good Cody Ford was, how he played through so many injuries, which is another thing. You got to be healthy to be on the field. But he talks about just how he's absolutely one of their top 5 linemen. They've got to find a friend, they've got to find a spot for him. But there's going to be some decisions, and whether Cody Ford is a difference maker at run blocking, I'm not really sure. You even have to look at Mitch Morris's contract. Remember when he had the concussion issues? That was one of the guys that everybody said, well, technically they could get out of this contract.
Well, that's a good one, Dan, because I was thinking, like, when you have decisions to make, you have Feliciano and you have Mitch Morris. Like, are you going all in to get Feliciano back and keeping Morris? Or, Feliciano has played center. Do they feel confident in that? Do you draft a center? Because that could be a case too, where maybe Feliciano's the guy they believe would shift over to there. But, teams have been more willing to move play. Look what they did with Cody Ford. I mean, he was supposed to be a tackle. They moved him to guard. Like, things are a little more flexible, I think, than they used to be. Not positionless, but it could be that they draft a guy in a decent round, say the third round at a center. They let Mitch Morris go. They know they have Feliciano if they need to. So there's decisions to make, certainly. And by the way, you look at the Chiefs. What if they had 4 offensive linemen hurt?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. You were talking about how the Bills are going to restructure their team to stay relevant amongst the AFC. Patrick Mahomes is getting paid $500 million at some point. Like, the Chiefs will also have cap issues to figure out who they need to pay.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dan. No, I mean, I just think it'll be such a tough offseason for Brandon Beane. It's good to have that extra $10 million like you talk about, Mike, but this is going to be tough. And because the Bills, you feel like, are kind of in that window right now as well. When you talk about maximizing, as it looks like, Belichick is still rebuilding in New England. They have issues there. The Jets still, we're not sure with. Obviously, Miami seems like more of a contender. Sorry, I just saw Elijah's comment about someone get Jenna some wings. I would love that. Yeah, I'm down. I'm down for chicken wings. I wasn't mad earlier. I'm just hungry. But yeah, I don't know. This is something to look for because Brandon Beane said, like, we're not going to make a huge big time blockbuster trade. But one of the names that I kept hearing about, and Charity just brings it up, Mike, JJ Watt. Could you see a potential for him coming to the Bills, or is that just, hey, we know this guy has been a great player. He wrecked the game plan in Houston last year. Wouldn't it be great to have him?
Yeah, I mean, look, would you put him on the field? Absolutely. It's a big cap number still. It's not as much. I mean, I would say to Brandon Beane, like, do you believe the guy's that big of a difference maker?
Yeah, good question, Mike.
Yeah, see, so exactly what I thought the way Brandon would feel about it.
Dan hasn't seen that yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. He just jumps in anytime we need him. Do I think JJ Watt would help him? Yeah. Do I think he's the kind of guy that when he goes, Dan, in Houston last year, all of a sudden when that team woke up, he woke up. And he has had odd statistical years. Like he's missed a ton of games and then he came back and he had crazy amount of sacks. Like he's a guy that his career is like Eagles and double bogeys. And the double bogeys are missing seasons, missing games, being hurt. But when he's out there and healthy, and I would say this, look, if you got a guy like JJ Watt, I think you'd get the best of him. Yeah. Like he's been sort of carrying that franchise, he and obviously Watson. I think if you got him for that year at the end, that's kind of, I got to say, that's a Patriots move to bring him in at the end.
To bring in the Chris Long to be that guy.
Yeah. Junior Seau type guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been around. And you say, is it worth it? He's got a year left on his deal. Can you get him in to play that year? Or does JJ Watt say, look, if you're going to trade me, whoever gets me, we redo a deal, and then you start stretching that out? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, they do need a difference maker on that. I'm not saying it's a bad idea at all, because I think you plop him on that D line, he's the most effective player on the line.
Yeah.
He just is. But
I agree.
I'd still take Jerry Hughes.
Over JJ Watt.
At this point, for the salary and the money.
Yeah, well, there's another point. Yes.
Well, that's the difference. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not as simple as here we are trying to figure out how they're going to re-sign the O-line and to bring in JJ Watt for the massive amount of money that he would be required. You'd have to find, Beane would have to be a magician to get all that stuff done.
I'd have to look at it.
My question is, Mike,
crazy. I don't think it's a crazy amount for the last year of his deal, but I mean, it's probably 17. It's probably 17 million. Like
my question is, Mike, is JJ Watt almost more important to the Houston Texans? It's almost like he carries that with him. Like JJ Watt in the Houston Texans locker room almost seems to mean more to me than if he were to come to the Bills, where they built a leadership. They have their guys. They know who there's going to be, and that you're almost trying to. I'm not saying that he wouldn't fit in, but is it almost a square peg into a round hole kind of thing?
I don't agree with that.
That's why I used the JJ or Junior Seau analogy. Mm-hmm. He's gone now, and he was a great player, but he was a Charger. Like he was the Chargers, and he goes to Foxborough, and he played really well for them.
Yeah,
and he's just such an accepted leader that I don't think. I mean, look, I think a guy like him might walk in and go, man, it's nice to have not the whole thing on my back.
Yeah, that's a good point. That could absolutely be true.
Could be. Look, JJ Watt might say, look, you want to trade me somewhere, I want a 5-year deal, and I want to keep like whatever. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I would think, isn't it funny though to even think that a guy who is Hall of Famer, right? I'm guessing Watt's a Hall of Famer, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That we would even say, oh, he'd want to come to the Bills. I think if you asked him, hey, we're going to trade you, we got you going to Buffalo, I can't imagine he wouldn't say, maybe not, that's my first choice, but he wouldn't say, yeah, I'd love to go there.
I agree.
Or I could play there.
I think, Dan, to your point of like, yes, the Bills do already have an established like set of leaders in the locker room, but I feel like they come from a similar culture of like it not being too many leaders. Like, I feel like that would kind of figure itself out because he seems like such a selfless, team-oriented guy as opposed to a more, I think he used to be more of a diva earlier on in his career. And I feel like now that approach is more team-oriented. I think it's been hard because of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
environment?
Yeah. It being in a strange environment in Houston. But I think when you look at him, I think he would be a guy that would buy into the process and to McDermott and to that locker room. And I feel like he would be like, let's be real. I think we were all kind of concerned about Stephon Diggs and what he would need and how he would kind of fit in with the Bills. And obviously that's not to say everything will be as seamless, but you have to think that other players are looking at the Bills for a ring. I mean, the Bills are a contender now. They're going to be talked about in that way.
And they've built up the culture now that it's like, I mean, it's the way we sort of used to look at when I say New England. People always talk about stuff like, high taxes and cold weather. Yeah, okay, Massachusetts has it too.
Yeah.
But people wanted to play there because they knew they had a shot and they had the quarterback and they had a chance. Mm-hmm. Right? Tampa had it this year with Brady.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because if Brady would have gone to Minnesota, players would have wanted to go to Minnesota. They wanted to play with Brady and they wanted to have a chance to win, and he gives them that. And I think the Bills do bring that up. And players notice the whole vibe of the way the place is. And a bunch of guys who've been at other places love being there. So that will help. Whether it's J.J. Watt or other players, I think it's something to look at.
I think the Bills are known in the league, like from the players' perspective, as, I mean, we asked at the Super Bowl last year, what do you think about playing in Buffalo? And a lot of people were like, I don't know, it's cold, it's whatever. Yeah. But now I think seeing how well Stephon Diggs has done and like him, who he is, I feel like a lot of people around the league are like, wow, look at the Bills. Like, they're having fun. They're winning. They're changing. Like, that is a team that could be, again, in the AFC Championship, if not further.
The process has enough steam now that it can kind of steamroll bumps along the way. Yeah. I look at it as an example of Quentin Spain, who was a guy that was the top, what I said was the most important guy to re-sign last offseason. They did it. He gets injured. He gets benched. He tweets out some things about y'all don't know what's going on here, and he's cut in like a week. Like, if you don't want in, like it was like, Mike, like you always talk about New England way. It was like you crossed McDermott the wrong way. There's no second chances. It's you're on the process or you're not.
Yeah.
To Jenna's point, there has been talk out of Houston. Now, granted, Houston is a complete dumpster fire. There's no question about it. But that J.J. Watt loves J.J. Watt.
Yeah, and I'm sure he does.
J.J. Watt makes sure that it is the J.J. Watt show in Houston. And I know from what I've heard, players are kind of sick and annoyed with it. You also get sick and annoyed with it when you go 3-13 and don't have a first round pick and your coach is an idiot and everybody hates your owner. Like all of those things compound into it. I'm just saying what I've heard.
Yeah, well, like Jenna said, people said not the same things, but similar negative things about Diggs.
Yeah.
And he got there. Now, Diggs is in the early to middle part of his career, and Watt's
older.
He's an older player. He's been around. He's not playing forever, but with his brothers playing, can they get his brother out of Pittsburgh?
Seriously.
Well, I think you'd take him.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking maybe he would want to be in Buffalo because it's closer to his family. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
I've thought about it.
He might,
about it.
Yeah.
Well, I just think of like Brandon Beane has tried to get impactful pass rushers. He did it with Ed Oliver last year with AJ and Panessa. Like, I think that that's something that they've really struggled to have traction with. Jerry Hughes has had an outstanding season, but he's not something you can rely on moving forward down the line. Yeah. So I just feel like that's something that like maybe you do have to throw money at that. Now, that's obviously a decision that the Bills will have to make, but I kind of get why, you want to draft and develop your talent, of course, but what if that development is not where you need it to be?
All right, so here's an interesting one, though. It's J.J. Watt. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Like, what's it cost to get J.J. Watt, draft capital-wise, out of Houston?
That's a good question.
Does it cost you a player? I got some like wild ideas of things you could do.
Okay. The Bills have 7 total draft picks.
Yeah. But I'm saying is like, I don't know what it cost you. I don't know if it cost you. I don't know if they want young players. They want whatever. I mean, he does have value still. I mean, he has value. It's not as much. He's not Deshaun Watson, but
guys, I think especially the rookies that were this year and a lot of the guys that were brought in this year almost get a pass in Beane and McDermott's eyes because of the unusual offseason and because of how weird it was. I think, and you heard Brandon Beane in his end of the year presser rant and rave about how great AJ Epinesa played. Said he played amazing the second half. Said they wanted him to cut weight and that he lost too much weight because that was how hard he was working after the draft process. And that he said Dane Jackson has every chance to be a starter next year in the way that he's played.
Yeah.
Those were things that he didn't need to say. He went out on the record to put those things out there.
Yeah.
That I think those were strong words for Epinesa getting a lot of playing time next year, maybe at a bigger weight, maybe a little bit bigger, heavier to stop better against the run, as well as, Josh Norman is a free agent. Levi Walls is a free agent. For him to say how well Dane Jackson played in his limited role leads me to believe that they're leaning towards Dane Jackson being a starter next year.
Yeah,
I believe
they're playing up their guys too. I
believe that about Dane Jackson, but I think when you look at the way that Gabriel Davis and Zach Moss played early on this year or throughout the entire year, like to me, I think of, I can't remember if it was Brandon or Sean talking about like, we have so much confidence in TJ Yeldon. Like we are so confident in TJ Yeldon, a guy who, did play in the playoffs because Zach Moss was hurt. But at the same point, he was a non-factor in every regular season game. Like, I don't know how much you put stock in them talking about the guys that they have on the roster. And like Epinesa, he didn't start earlier on in the season, then he worked his way into the lineup. But also I feel like at a certain point, like you're not getting the production. So is it more of, maybe you do need to have Epinesa out there more, but at the same point, that's how they're grooming their talent, Jenna, because Ed Oliver got benched last year too and didn't have any snaps. And they cut his snaps and then he came back and was better. But he said AJ this year. But they said it wasn't outstanding. It wasn't like, wow, it was like he woke up when he got benched last year and he realized, okay, I need to play. But this year I would look at his production and be like, okay, like I'm not inspired for a first overall pick from the Bills 2 years ago. I'm not like, wow, what a player at this point in his career.
It's a nose tackle. You're not going to always see huge flashy numbers.
See the numbers. You might want to see a little more.
I agree, but just in terms of pressures, in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback, it seemed like
but that's a D-line unit as a whole that really didn't get a bunch of pressures. Like
I think I think Epinesa is going to play a lot next year. I think he's one of those guys that needed some of the things. It's funny. I saw some, there's some people want to make excuses for every position group, which is why sometimes you got to, guard a little bit against what you read and what you see. But we can't talk about the offseason for veteran guys who didn't excel as much in the system. And then you got a guy like Stephon Diggs that just walks in and is great from the beginning. I'm not saying it doesn't hinder players. And I think a guy like AJ Epinesa, the way he's built and the way he had to adjust his body maybe a little and figure things out, he'll now know what's out there a little bit, got his feet wet, and he'll be back. Veteran guys on the D-line, like, come on. After a couple of games, like, they'll figure it out, and they go and they play. So I'm not making excuses for that D-line. I guess I just look at them as I said, they need a number one guy. They need a Jerry Hughes 6 years ago. Sure. Like they need a younger version of Jerry. It's as good as he was. He shouldn't be their most dynamic player. That'll make all the rest of them so much better if they get a guy like that.
But to Jenna's point, like again, we're saying how the D-line didn't perform well this year and that AJ Epinesa really didn't show much. Like before the season, we weren't expecting him to show much. When they drafted him, they all kind of said like, he's not expected to come in and start right away, and he didn't. And by the end of the year,
by the end of the year,
he was
about Ed Oliver though as well. Like as a unit, I don't think it's a hot take to say that the Bills needed to get more pressure. And I think when you see, like, I just think maybe I'm expecting too much out of Ed Oliver. But I just worry because the Bills have used their first pick in the last 2 years on getting pressure on the quarterback, and we just haven't seen that pay off as of right now. So is that a project that still needs to be worked out? It seems like it, but at what point do you start to worry and say, okay, what are they going to do? Because they know that's a piece that they need to work on for the future.
Well, yeah, I mean, hang on, Mike, because Epinesa was a second-round pick, Jenna. Like, their first-round pick was Stephon Diggs.
I get
Epinesa,
that. He was there.
Epinesa wasn't the 5th overall pick.
This last draft. He was expected to go in the first round.
And then he didn't. And the Bills got it. And the Bills got him.
But the Bills got a steal, and I feel like the window is now. I feel like the window is right now in terms of having Allen on a cheap contract. You have other young talent. You have Diggs. Like, you have all of that. You have your offensive coordinator coming back. You have Leslie Frazier. You have that stability. I feel like it's now. Okay.
Michael, go ahead.
Would they ever consider trading Edmonds?
No.
What if they wanted to keep Milano? You're only going to pay one of the two of those guys. And they realize Milano's skill set is what it is. I know Edmonds is a young player. I'm just throwing it out there to say at a certain point where he was drafted, what he's made coming up. I'm talking about to a team that you could do okay with. And the idea between paying money to Milano before you pay money to Edmonds. Because Milano's going to be gone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be gone if you're only paying one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that is likely.
I'm not saying likely. I'm just saying something big came up. Big came up for them on a pass rusher, somebody they wanted to get. I think about that, and I think of Ed Oliver. I think young guys drafted high that at some point you got to make a big decision on. And now look, it's super hot take because they talk so highly of Tremaine Edmonds sometimes that I wish he was as good as they seem to think he is. And I know he has talent, but we're going to keep going by this Rasmus Dahlin thinking of just because the guy is really young, that makes him gotta be great. I didn't do that. Oh, you did. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Edmonds as a defensive end.
I love it.
Ooh.
I say it all the time. He's a pass or a pass rushing linebacker.
Yeah.
Like, even if you have him standing up, I think with his, I even asked that to Leslie Frazier. They all gave me that same answer. Like it's, and I'm thinking when we have seen him on the attack with his wingspan and his athleticism and going forward, like Jenna, wingspan. And I love it. And they just don't think of him that way. I don't know.
I can't totally claim that hot take. I'll give credit where credit's due. My college roommate, Angelo Chandra, he's a big Bills fan, watches all of these Buffalo Plus, all the vlogs that we do. And he was like, dude, Edmonds as a defensive end, his size, his speed, he's like, that makes so much sense. And again, what's the one critique that we all have about Edmonds? He can't cover. So take away his coverage. Right. Let him fill lanes. Let him just run after the quarterback as his size. Have inside with Epinesa, because even though Jenna wants to cut him after 1 year for being disappointing.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because Jenna wants to cut everybody who had a poor year this year and just gut the whole team.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's frustrating because of the investment. And that doesn't mean there won't be a return on the investment. It's just the fact that right now you haven't seen that.
But I will say this. The Bills have to, and Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have to be careful of not hitting the right now button and mortgaging too much down the future. Because
I understand that. It's a balance.
Right. Because I don't think they're ever going to trade the process for a Super Bowl chance. Like they won't gamble with that. And the gamble of, okay, It's tough. The way that you would say like the Rams are going all in, like we got 2 years to get this done and that's it. Like I just don't see them making that move. And instead of sticking with what they've drafted, the guys they've invested in, the guys that fit their mentality. I look at another guy like Harrison Phillips, who I'm always rooting for, but at times I've been like, where does he fit in?
Yeah.
But then you hear him that he fits the locker room and the type of character, all of those things.
Yeah. When I brought that up about Edmonds, or even I do wonder sometimes what do they really think? There's things they say to us. There's things they hope for in terms of the development. Now, I'm not even talking about Epinesa, 1 year in the league. But, with Edmonds, he's on the same path in terms of Josh Allen contract-wise. Obviously, Allen's going to get crazy money, and he's close to MVP level. Whereas Tremaine Edmonds has been
Pro Bowl.
Yes. Right, but he's got to be better. He's got to be better. He shouldn't have made the Pro Bowl this year. Sorry, Tremaine, if you're watching. He shouldn't have made the Pro Bowl this year. There's no way. He wasn't. Jordan Poyer doesn't make it and he makes it. Come on. Sometimes
Poyer got robbed.
And Milano's a better linebacker, has been a more productive linebacker. But I think that guy has a skill set. Again, we're probably totally wrong. I think just by this much, Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott know more about defense than we do.
A little bit.
Just by a little bit. And I do trust these guys in their decision making. But sometimes when it's the guy you drafted, you brought in, you love, you want to see them do well. And I just sometimes what's that?
Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, that is true. But I would say, look, to Bean, I would say, do you think you're getting what you drafted out of Edmonds?
Yeah, good question, Mike.
So you got to say, can you get to that level with a guy like Edmonds, because he was a first-round draft pick at linebacker? He's supposed to be a star.
Yeah.
Obviously,
I wonder what types of conversations Bean and Sean and the scouting department and everyone is having, because I feel like
it's a year early on the Edmonds discussion, by the way. Even what I'm saying is because they got next season, and then you make the decision on the 5th-year option, which is big money, or are you signing him? But I think privately they want to see more. I would think they want to see
I agree. More. And Dan, I understand the balance of it. You can't, what is it, mortgage the farm? I get that for short-term success. You always have to have your eye on the future. And that's not something that I worry about with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. But I would be shocked if they weren't frustrated by the play of some of the defensive line.
Sure. I don't disagree with that.
I think that agree with me, because I feel like we're disagreeing, but we're
I love it. We're like butting heads. This is what makes a good show, Jenna, is that we disagree on things.
Did you guys ever think
I disavow?
Did you guys ever think this show could be on every night?
Maybe even people want to see us
everywhere, all around the country, every night. You'd have Jenna and Dan and Catalano. You'd have the whole group in there.
Too busy on my tender
But Jenna, they tried to address the D-line issue last year's draft. I think they can go that way again. I think they could also,
Yeah. Here's what I
just think it's too early to hit the panic button to say
the
reason the Bills struggled was because they got no pressure on the quarterback.
I'm not saying that is why they struggled. I'm saying that's a piece of why they struggled and something that they would want to address going forward. I think they're very much self-scouting.
Oh, look at that.
That's very nice.
Is it Juan Castillo?
Wait, I just read that.
You love when we disagree. See?
That's funny.
By the way, is there a guy they make more excuses for? And this is not an organization makes a lot of excuses, as Dawson Knox would tell you right now, because for them, that was sort of like, hey, Dawson, we need better out of the position and out of you. Then Edmonds. We hear a lot about the shoulder. Leslie now again, I could be so wrong.
They protect him a lot.
I could be so wrong. His shoulder could have been really bad, but he played every week.
Mike, he's 22 years old. He's 22. He's a young player, Mike. Did you know that he's 22?
Yes, I know. They tell us all the time. Hey, look at their other number ones. Trey White got really good, really fast, and then he made All-Pro, and he's one of the best corners in the league. Josh Allen, with all the weight of the world on his shoulders, became a superstar quarterback in year number 3. I'm not saying every one of your picks is going to be that, and Tremaine Edmonds is a starter in the league. I think, man, when you look at the Chiefs, they ain't going anywhere. They're not going anywhere, so you're going to have to make some moves, and it might be a little more aggressive than we think this offseason.
Thank you,
but
Mike.
That's my fear. My fear is
I'm not saying dumb moves. I'm saying more aggressive.
I know, but my fear is you look too much at the Chiefs instead of looking at yourselves. And my fear is when that happens is we've talked about the different sports. Again, I know, but it was like the Houston Rockets were going to try and out Golden State. And they imploded themselves and crippled themselves and made themselves into a shell of what they could be.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, let's run it back. We got let's do this differently. Let's just try this. Instead, they tried to reinvent the game and tried to be Golden State's, clone, and it blew up. Different sport where things can get real weird with contracts and players being moved around. But that's my fear is that they're constantly being asked about the Chiefs. They're the gold standard. And they are. But you can't always focus on we got to beat Tom Brady. You can't beat Tom Brady. You also have to build your own team.
I agree, but you can do both. I don't think it's
tough. I think it's a lot more challenging.
Yeah, but you don't think that they know that they do, they obviously know they do have to beat the Chiefs. So I think your one eye is going to be on Kansas City, but at the same point, you know best how to make your team better, or at least the plan in which Andy Reid. Wow.
Scott Blakely is fired tonight. I'm going to give Scott a shout out. He's got great comments tonight.
But I don't worry about Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott not seeing the big picture and focusing too much on the Chiefs. I know we talk about it as, thank you, Juan, as someone who, okay, you're going to have to take on KC, you're going to have to take them on. But I just think they're self-aware enough to realize what they need to improve on. And by doing that, they will therefore be a better contender against the Chiefs. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Okay. That's fair. I'm just saying you've seen good GMs and good franchises think they were this close, trade future capital for that one piece, a la the Chicago Bears or the Raiders, like teams giving up pieces for too much to go, well, hey, we this is the guy that we're short. And I love Sean McDermott's answer by being we're not one player short. The minute that you do that, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with that, Dan. I think you're right. I don't think there isn't one move. They made that one move, and it was a great one. It's not the one, but the move they made last year to get Diggs is franchise
100%.
changing.
Yes.
That's what the NFL is.
That's right. But there are times, you go for a Frank Clark or you go for, pass rushers. You go for certain guys that can really make a difference. And I got to say, that's what I say New England did. Once they built their core, they cherry-picked. But in the truth with New England, they always got guys on the cheap and got them towards the end. They didn't spend great assets to go get them. Heck, they even got Randy Moss for nothing, 2 fourth-round picks after he imploded with the Raiders. So,
and they always knew how to cut people before they were useless, which I always thought was interesting. Because did you guys know that LaShawn McCoy has now played in 2 Super Bowls? He doesn't play, but LaShawn McCoy is. If you follow his Instagram, he's ring chasing, and that this is it.
We had a nice conversation with him last year at the Super Bowl. Yeah. I took some pictures. He asked me to email them to him because it was him at the podium. And in fairness to LaShawn, he might have thought this was it.
Yeah.
And then he ends up in Tampa with Tom Brady, and he's back again. So he's got a Super Bowl ring.
I do want credit for saying that he was done when he left Buffalo. And everybody called me a moron and that I didn't know what I was talking about and that the O-line was terrible and that McCoy's going to be a Pro Bowler with Kansas City.
Well, then your point of how you admired New England for doing the same thing.
100%. That was my example.
Yeah. I know. I already highlighted that.
Oh, I missed that one. Yeah, I think that's talking about McCoy.
This turned into a Bill show. There was supposed to be Super Bowl talk.
Well, we did. We talked a lot. We'll go now.
Let's be real. Like people,
well, we got to do our poll, Jenna. We got to do the poll here.
Oh yeah, let's do the poll. People.
Here was the poll. So I asked which team you're rooting for. Tell us why. And I really wanted to say, in a way, I wanted to hear like for or against. Think about this. 44% of our Bills audience says they're rooting for Tom Brady. That's interesting to me.
It's the Bucs though.
Yes.
I mean, obviously it couldn't be the Patriots and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but I just think it's so different. Him leaving Belichick, leaving New England.
Yeah. We got some good comments here, Jen. I'll give them to you.
Yeah, neither. Love it, Brooke. That's funny.
Belichick
is a systems coach. Brady is the GOAT, but enough of them go KC.
He wins his squares.
Because Brady, get that, Julie. A lot of feelings like that. Greg, because I don't want Brady to think he's God, which pretty sure he already does. Patriots, because I think Mahomes' fiance is annoying, and I don't want to see her if they win again.
Amazing.
Peter.
Oh, that was the best comment. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting point because we talked earlier about how Steph Curry became unlikable. I think his wife and started to rub people the wrong way. Mahomes' brother on TikTok and his wife. I think Mahomes is starting to go heel. He's starting to go that way.
I actually agree with that. I do agree with that. I think people are. Because I think, too, when you watch a game and Mahomes is playing, he does anything. It's like, I mean, you've never seen it before. Look at the way he throws the ball so effortlessly. Dude could be tying his shoes and they'd be like, the bunny and the loop. Wow. It's like, all right, we get it. Like, I get it.
Jenna's fired up tonight. This is Jenna's best show.
This is.
I'm hungry. But
mean Jenna.
Don't you? Yeah. But I mean, I think it gets old after a while.
It will. And by the way, you're going to
see parity in the NFL.
You're going to get so much of that Sunday during the game. It's going to be what is our boy going to be saying to Jim during the game?
I don't know, Jim.
I think it's a crab.
Look at Mahomes.
Did you see that, Jim? Unbelievable.
He tied his shoes.
Rico saying Tom Brady became likable the minute he left New England.
Oh, well, I would say,
I kind of agree with that.
You mean Benjamin Button, the quarterback of the Buccaneers.
Yeah, he's definitely got something done.
Something's going that way.
Yeah, something. I will say, if you are on the fence or you haven't decided yet, there is if you're watching from Western New York, if there's a Western New York tie. So one of the offensive linemen for the Bucs, his name is Ali Marpet. He actually went to college at Hobart, the Division III school in Geneva. He literally, Division III player. He ended up being the highest ever drafted Division III player to go to the NFL. He was picked 62nd overall by the Bucs. That was back in 2015. He's played outstanding since then. This was the first year he was nominated to the Pro Bowl, or not Pro Bowl, All-Pro, excuse me. But he's someone to root for with some Western New York flair as well.
It's crazy. I mean, he did not come from Mount Union.
No,
right?
He came from Hobart.
Hobart.
I will say, Hobart was very good.
Yeah, but they
weren't
the kind of team.
What is it, Wisconsin Whitewater? And
right. They weren't bringing in guys. Like when I actually called for the radio once a Mount Union Fisher game. Mount Union comes on the field. They look like
it was like a telegram.
Well, I mean, it's like
radio.
Wait a minute. Hold on. This was like 6 years ago.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Actually, it might have been a couple more than that. You know who was playing for no, it was a little more than that. It was probably 8 years ago. You know who was playing for Mount Union was Cecil Shorts. Remember him from Jacksonville, the wide receiver? A good player in the NFL.
Pierre Garçon.
But they had a lot of guys who were supposed to go to Division I school, especially in Ohio, and maybe for one reason or another, it didn't work out. They were whatever. Most of those guys don't go to Division III. Mount Union was one of those places. Hobart, phenomenal school, great setting in Geneva, all those good things. It's not a football power. It's not like you're going. And I asked him about it today because when he was at the combine, we did an interview with him, and he was trying to gain, I think at the time he needed to put on like 30 pounds, where he thought he'd be at NFL level because he was dominating in Division III. And he was eating 9,000 calories a day.
I love food. That's gross.
And he said today, I have nightmares about it. It was a job. He said he'd have to set his alarm, wake up and eat because he was trying to eat while he was working out and doing everything. And he joked he still had his like protein shake or whatever with him. You know, he's got to keep his weight up, but most of those guys have to do it during the year. But to go from being that guy at Division III to an all-pro in the NFL and his coach, what did his coach say, Jenna, that he gave him advice, right? He gave him advice on Brady.
Brady.
To be good in pass protection. He said,
Brady will let you know.
And he said his advice probably was, the coach probably told him, don't get Brady killed. Yeah, that's a good idea when you got Tom Brady. But yes, so if you're rooting for the Bucs, you got a Hobart guy that can win a Super Bowl, which would be pretty cool.
Funny story about Ali Marpet. We talked to some of his teammates from Hobart earlier this week, and they said that for his eating when he was trying to gain weight, he would go to the dining hall for breakfast and have 4 omelets on his plate and then put 2 bagels on top. So like that was the breakfast he was eating. That was just breakfast. He would have to eat like every 4 hours.
Oh,
it's a lot of food.
But Jenna's hungry now, so we're about ready to get going.
I am hungry now.
Doing picks?
We got to do our picks.
Let's do our picks.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's start with we'll start with Dan.
Why is that? Because I had the best record this year?
Well, you haven't picked anything wrong so far in the Super Bowl. So go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Tom Brady has had 12 days by himself in his house. The kids and Giselle are gone. He says he's never had this much time to prepare. I'm going to bet Brady. And I think that the Chiefs defense is not as good as what they played against the Bills. I think the Bills played into their hands. I think Tom Brady can exploit that. The Bucs have a better D-line with a Chiefs offensive line that is banged up. I will take Brady with a last-minute drive, and they'll kick a game-winning field goal to win his 7th Super Bowl.
That'd be cool. I'm going to go next. I'm picking the Chiefs to win this game. I think their team speed is the difference. You can make an argument that Brady could easily be, he's been in 9 Super Bowls already, and he's 6-3. He easily could be 4-5. Mm-hmm. I mean, but he didn't. He came back against Atlanta, and he ended up somehow winning that Seattle game, which obviously, was a disaster at the end. And the ones he's won have all been 3-point games, except the Atlanta game of all cases, because they won that with a touchdown. So all Brady's games in the Super Bowl are close. I shouldn't take that back. I think they ended up, would they beat the Rams? 13-3, 10-3. It was an ugly game in that one. But I think this one's going to be a fun game. I've got the Chiefs outscoring them. I really won't be that upset if Brady wins. Fine. He's got so many anyhow, but that's the way I'm going. Jenna?
All right, so here's my pick. I have the Chiefs winning in this one, and I think it's because of that switch that we saw flipped a couple weeks ago in the AFC Championship game. Look, I know the Bucs have a great defense. They get after it, but I just think that we've seen the Chiefs be so fantastic, especially a couple weeks ago, like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and the weapons that they have. Now, they are a little banged up on their O-line. I know the Chiefs defense is not as good, but I think when you see Brady throw 3 interceptions in the second half in the NFC Championship, I think there's the potential for some back-breaking turnovers, and especially if they're trailing. So I have the Chiefs winning this one. I actually want the Bucs to win, though, which I was not expecting to say earlier on. But I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think what I'm going to do, Dan, though, is I'm going to bet on the Chiefs and hope for the Patriots. So if the Chiefs do win, I will still be happy. It'll be a win. Yeah.
Andy gets his chance to get a win against Brady.
Enormous cheeseburger.
Well, he lost to Brady in the Super Bowl. So when I brought my dad to in Jacksonville, when the Eagles lost to him and McNabb threw up and the whole thing, he denies whatever. And by the way, my mom says she's rooting for Brady because he's the underdog and everybody wants him to lose. So My mom chiming in. I'm not sure if Val chimed in yet on she's rooting for the Patriots.
Tom Brady. Yeah, she wants Brady.
I say the Patriots, the Bradys.
Yeah, she wants the Fighting Bradys to win.
And Dan, your wife?
I haven't heard anything, but going off of what she didn't like Patrick Mahomes' voice, she knows Brady and Giselle, so I think she'll side with that.
Right, this is a Tom Brady.
Tom Brady household.
I'm kind of shocked to see it, but
yeah,
I guess we'll see. Dan, I am going to need your help with placing a bet.
Got it. I know a guy.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's wrap up. This is our longest show ever. All right. Thank you everyone for joining us. Be sure to subscribe.
Like and subscribe. We're going to be adding content. We're going to really be breaking down the Bills by position over the next few weeks. More content that way, leading right up to free agency. I mean, it is going to come up pretty fast. And I think the Bills have a lot of decisions to make before free agency in terms of those players. But I think it's going to be a fun offseason because you already have a really good football team in Buffalo. The question is, what moves do they make to take another step?
Yeah. And Dan and I will continue to argue, so don't worry about that.
Love it.
All right. For Dan Fetes and Mike Catalana, I am Jenna Cottrell. We'll see you on Buffalo Plus. Thanks for watching tonight. We'll have more content coming for you soon.